Kore Mwapinduka, and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date for the latest news in Africa and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, joined by Aina Raisakoyo. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Here are the top stories. Youth hubs creating jobs for young people in 9 African countries. Surveillance footage showed an attack on the Shi'ite Muslim shrine in Iran's southern city of Shiraz. And the International Energy Agency said it had revised upward its forecast for global oil demand growth in 2023 as demand is scaling record high. Now you can catch all our program on oneup2.com, DSTV 285 and GoTV 25. Later on in the show, we have Master Mike Sichula bringing us the news making waves in Zambia, as well as a sports package courtesy of Ari Hochad. We'll be right back with the top stories.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
In our top stories this morning, surveillance footage showed deadly attack on Iran's shrine. Surveillance footage showed an attack on the Shi'ite Muslim shrine in Iran's southern city of Shiraz on Sunday, the 13th of August. A local official told State TV that the attack on the Shah Cherega shrine killed at least one person, adding that one person had been arrested. At least 7 people were wounded, including 2 workers at the shrine and 2 pilgrims. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, which a state news agency IRNA said had been carried out by terrorists.
Now, in our next story, Niger's mutinous soldiers said they will prosecute deposed President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason and undermining state security. In an announcement hours after the junta said they were open to dialogue with West African nations to resolve the mounting regional crisis. If found guilty, Bazoum could face the death penalty according to Niger's penal code. Spokesman Colonel Major Amadou Abdramene said on state television on Sunday night that the military regime had gathered the necessary evidence to prosecute before competent national and international authorities the ousted president and his local and foreign accomplices for high treason and for undermining the internal and external security of Niger. The announcement said high-ranking West African politicians and their international mentors have made false allegations and attempted to derail a peaceful solution to the crisis in order to justify a military intervention. It said Bazoum was being charged following his exchanges with these people. Now, the statement did not identify specific Western countries and did not specify a date for the trial.
Ukraine develops a homemade demining machine to blow up Russian mines. Ukrainian volunteers have joined up with the army to morph a standard excavator into an efficient demining machine, which they put to test over the weekend, saying it will blow up any and all types of mine. Modern demining vehicles are rare in Ukraine, and the team developed this machine much in the same way as a World War II M4 Sherman tank, which was fitted with flails. Speaking from a test field near the southern industrial city of Kyiv, engineer Vitaly, a 50-year-old who did not give his full name for security reasons, said he was totally confident that the specifically mounted excavator, which has an armored shield to contain the blast, will destroy all mines in its path. Instead, this excavator is fitted with chains around the rotating axis, which Vitali believes can hit to the power of 1 ton.
Now in our next story, youth hubs creating jobs for young people in 9 African countries. A green transition could create 8.4 million jobs for young people by 2030, according to a report by the International Labour Organization, ILO, that is being highlighted on International Youth Day. Green jobs are described as jobs that contribute to preserving or restoring the environment. In the lead up to the SDG summit in September, marking the halfway point for implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the UN is calling on young people to be better equipped to deal with these new green opportunities through skills and training programs. The UN's International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, has already been implementing this idea by funding youth hubs in 9 countries across Africa to give young people skills that they need to convert into sustainable jobs. These young women in Abeokuta in Nigeria are busy growing vegetables in specially created polytunnels. They say they feel fortunate to have found a job and a steady income. With youth unemployment rate standing at 13% in Nigeria, millions of young people struggle to find work. Nearly half of Nigerians live in rural areas.
In our next story, Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Shen have sold one of their San Francisco homes for $31 million in an off-deal market, a spokesperson for the family confirmed. The deal marks the most expensive sale in San Francisco so far this year, according to Zillow. Built in 1928, the 7,386 square foot home has 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms and is on the edge of the Mission District in the Dolores Heights neighborhood of the city. The sale closed on July the 1st, but records of the transaction have just become publicly available. The Facebook Meta co-founder, 38, and his wife, 37, purchased the home in 2012 for just under $10 million through a California-based limited liability company, according to records with Property Shark. A grant deed between the seller and the buyer was signed on the SFRP's behalf on the Naeem Salam, the vice president of operations of the Chen Zuckerberg Initiative.
Now, authorities in eastern Zambia have stopped a wedding involving a 14-year-old girl. We get into this story on the other side of the break when we tackle news from Zambia.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. The Chinese government has provided a ready market for soybean farmers in Zambia. Master Mike Sichula is in Zambia with this story and more. Good morning, Master Sichula.
Africa, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Yes, getting down to the first story. Chinese Minister of Agriculture Tang Penjin has urged Zambian farmers to consider growing soybeans in large quantities for export to the East African nation, China. Dr. Tang says China will buy the soybeans that will be produced no matter how large the volume will be. So the Chinese envoy has been in Zambia. Yesterday he held a meeting at State House with President Hakainde Hichilema, and he did emphasize the importance of the two countries to provide markets for agricultural products. And one of those products that he has emphasized on is the growing of soybeans. Soybeans in Zambia is not a strategic crop, but over the past few years, a lot of farmers in Zambia have ventured into soybean production. But what has affected them is now pricing. So just this year, during the marketing season of this year, the price of soybean has gone down, disadvantaging a lot of farmers that had ventured into the growing of the crop for the lucrative market. So with the Chinese government coming on board to provide a ready market, it is something that a lot of soybean farmers in Zambia are surely going to take advantage of, so that they can produce more for the local market and for the export market, which China is pledging to provide to Zambian farmers.
Now, in your next story, a 15-year-old girl is using plastic waste to make pavers as a way of dealing with plastic waste. Can we get into this story, please?
Yes, this is another interesting story coming out from the just recent science fair, the JET fair that the Ministry of Education held. So close to over 60 Zambian youths from across the country have been participating at this fair. And one of those participants is 15-year-old Safi Chiwe of Lusaka, who is making pavers using plastic. Safi, who is in grade 11 at Lusaka's Kabonga Girls Secondary School, has been melting plastic and molding them into pavers as a way of dealing with plastic pollution. As you all know, that plastic pollution has affected Zambia just like many other African nations. So she has taken up an initiative, and it is something that the authorities are going to patent, so that later when she is given whatever available resources that she needs to improve her project, then this project can be one of those that can help to deal with plastic pollution in the country. When you visit a number of places within Lusaka and other parts of the country, is all over, especially plastic. And you know, plastic takes a long time to be gotten rid of the environment. So it is something that the authorities have expressed interest, and they're hoping that such a project can win international and local support, so that it can be improved upon and also deal with plastic waste and also create employment.
All right, Master Sichula, moving over to your next story. At least 60 heart surgeries have been conducted at Lusaka's National Heart Hospital. Tell us about this.
Yes, the National Heart Hospital is one of the projects that the government of Zambia has put in place to help people not be traveling out of the country to conduct, for them to receive medical surgery. So according to the Health Professionals Council of Zambia, it has commended the National Heart Hospital for recording 95% success rate on surgeries it has done so far. So the public relations manager, Terry Msonda, says the 95% success on surgeries is a clear demonstration that the country has competent local human resource, especially that the hospital conducted over 60 operations within the country. So this is something that Zambian medical authorities are proud of, because according to the government, this is enabling the country to reduce on costs that they have been incurring in the past to evacuate patients with heart problems to countries such as India, sometimes even South Africa. So it is something that they're also hoping it is going to create medical tourism within the Southern African region.
Now, in your next story, on a rather sad and disturbing note, authorities in eastern Zambia have stopped a wedding involving a 14-year-old girl. Can you get into this story?
Yes, this is one of those stories that keep popping up in some rural communities of Zambia. So a wedding involving a 14-year-old girl and 24-year-old father of a 2-year-old month baby has been stopped by a member of the royal family in Mangombe chiefdom in Katete, eastern Zambia. All was set for the wedding, and on Saturday, with the child bride donning a chitenge yellow t-shirt and flip-flops, while the groom wore a plastic flip-flops and ripped jeans. However, Betty Piri, the daughter of Chief Mwanangombe, stopped the wedding on instructions from her father. This was after the bride's aunt reported the wedding ceremony. So it is something that authorities have been grappling with in order to stop early teen marriages. But deep down in rural communities, the vice is going on. And one of those is the one that we're just talking about, of a 14-year-old girl. So you can imagine what the two families could have gone through to do this wedding, knowing pretty well that such a ceremony was illegal in Zambia, because the minor is just below the required marriage standard here in Zambia. So authorities have taken up this case, and they have also put into questions the parents that were involved in this illegal wedding ceremony.
Truly, truly disturbing indeed. Thank you so much for bringing us these stories from Zambia.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning.
Now we take a look at the weather predictions for Southern Africa.
Let's get into our economic news this morning. IEA raises world oil demand forecast in 2023. The International Energy Agency said it have revised upward its forecast for global oil demand growth in 2023 as demand is scaling record high. World oil demand already hit a record 103 million barrels per day in June and August and could see yet another peak, the Paris-based IEA said in its monthly report. For 2023 as a whole, global oil demand is set to expand by 2.2 million barrels per day to 102.2 million barrels per day. China accounted for 70% of growth, the IEA said, adding that the demand in the Asian region was also stronger than expected, reaching fresh highs despite persistent concerns over the health of the economy.
Now in our next story, the rand took a hit on Monday, breaking through the 19 rand to $1 level and trading around its weakest level in a month. It has lost almost 5% to the dollar over the past month. The latest bout of weakness is not driven by South African factors. Instead, fear and uncertainty have crippled the market, which means investors are dumping riskier assets for the safety of the US dollar, says Calculo, portfolio manager and strategist at PSG Wealth Old Oak.
Now we take a look at our economic indicators courtesy of Ben Bentuk.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with tennis news first. It was a Canadian Open men and women that played its 1000s tournament on the WTA and ATP that concluded. That was on Sunday, and the winner of the men's division was Yannick Sinner. He's from Italy. That's his first 1000s tournament win. 1000s tournament mean that all the top ranked players in the world played in the tournament, and he beat Alex de Minaur in the final. He's from Australia, 6-4 and 6-1. 7th seed Yannick Sinner, a bit of a surprise playing against the unseeded Alex de Minaur. Many of the top seeds fell away in the round of 16 quarterfinal also, and it was number 1 seed in the tournament, Carlos Alcaraz, that lost to Tommy Paul in the quarterfinals, and number 2 seed Daniil Medvedev, he lost to Alex de Minaur. That was also in the quarterfinals, 7-6 and 7-5. And in the women's division, it was Jessica Pegula of the USA. She won the Canadian Open. She beat Lyudmila Samsonova of Russia in the final 6-love and 6-1. Difficult for Samsonova to play in the final because she played the semi-final earlier on the finals day. That was because of scheduling problems because of rain. She played against Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan and beat her in 3 sets, so it was unfair to her to play 2 games on one day. It was also Elena Rybakina, number 4 in the world, that slammed the WTA as being unprofessional for the scheduling problems, and she also finished her quarter-final at 3 a.m. on this Saturday. Going on to golf news, and there's a new women's number 1 player in the world, and that is Lilia Vu. Lilia Vu over the weekend won the British Open for women, also called the AIG Open, and she won it quite convincingly, and it is she's overtaking Nelly Korda of the USA. Nelly Korda will now be the new world number 2 with the new rankings coming out. Also on the golf, it was in the men's PGA. It was a good win for Lucas Glover. It was consecutive wins for him. He won a week ago also the Wyndham Championship, but now he won the St. Jude's Championship. That was the first of 3 FedEx Cup playoffs, and a big win for him. He played in a playoff to win the title. He had 15 under par total together with Patrick Cantlay of the USA. They had an extra hole playoff. The first playoff hole, it was Lucas Glover that won. The next tournament will be the BMW Championship on the PGA and the FedEx, so the best 50 players on the ranking will now go and play on the BMW Championship, and then that's followed with the top 30 players finishing off at the last FedEx tournament in Atlanta. And continuing international sports news with soccer news, it is still transfer news. Big news for Neymar. He's the Brazilian forward that plays for Paris Saint-Germain for PSG, and the PSG agreed to sell him to the Saudi Arabian Pro League, and it was Al Hilal that made an offer of 90 million euros, and it is Neymar that will go over to the Saudi Premier League. He was in the news in 2017 for a world record signing of 222 million euro in 2017. So now he's sold for 90 million euros. Also in the English Premier League, it was Liverpool and Chelsea that was fighting for the signature of the Ecuadorian midfielder from Brighton, that is Moises Caicedo, and in the end it was Chelsea that offered 133 million euro compared to 128 million euro of Liverpool. So it's Caicedo that will go to Chelsea for the new season. And closing off today's international sports news with rugby news, it is the flyer of England's rugby team, Owen Farrell, that is in trouble. He's received a red card when he played against Wales. That was in a friendly game over the weekend, and he needs to see what World Rugby punishment he will get for the red card. And it is a concern, obviously, for England. They need to play against Argentina, their first World Cup game, on the 10th of September. That is the opening game. And if he gets a red card and there will be sanction against Owen Farrell, he might not be able to play against Argentina that first game. So World Rugby still needs to decide what the punishment will be. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Here are the highlights from today's broadcast. Surveillance footage shows a deadly attack on Iran's shrine. Niger school leaders say they will prosecute deposed President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason. Ukraine develops a homemade demining machine to blow up Russian mines. Youth hubs creating jobs for young people in 9 African countries. IEA raises world oil